We must love one another or die, defenceless under the night. Our world in stupor lies, but dotted everywhere. Ironic points of light flash out wherever the just exchange their messages. May I, like them, composed of eros and of dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame. So the title of the talk is We Must Love One Another or Die. Integrity, authenticity and courageous compassion in dark times. Is that what brought most of the people here? Show of hands if that was... So I chose a good title, yeah. Usually you have to put sex in to fill the room. But I'm managing to fill the room nowadays with the quality of time. The poem comes from... anybody know where it comes from? I didn't realise. Buddhafield crowd are not literally sophisticated. It's an Auden poem. Auden. W-H Auden. Auden. Oh, that's showing me up now. Yeah, Odin. Yes, Odin gave it me to personally. Now, Auden, and it's called September 1939. So the poem, it's quite a long poem, and he's talking about, he's talking about despair of seeing, and the last two stanzas is something like, all I have is a voice to undo the folded lie, the romantic lie in the brain of the sensual man in the street, the lie of authority whose buildings grope the sky. There is no such thing as the state. And hunger allows no choice to the citizen or the police. We must love one another or die, defenceless under the night. Our world in stupor lies, yet dotted everywhere. Ironic points of light flash out. Wherever the just exchange their messages, may I, like them, beleaguered by negation and despair, show an affirming flame. And I find that so beautiful. So beautiful. There's that sense of, this is September 1939, the declaration of war. The dark clouds across Europe, are forming after, the depression of the 30s, the increase of rise in the right wing and the extreme of the left wing. Great deal of racism, anti-Semitism, and it doesn't seem that dissimilar to today. Yeah? And the way we dealt with that was to go to war in 1940. And this is Auden saying we must love one another or die. So the just, wherever the just exchange their messages. So, ironic points of light. We need to become ironic points of light flashing out. A lot of this stuff I've said before, and if you're at my workshops, I'll be repeating myself from yesterday. But we can think about change in terms of ideas. But it actually really needs to come from deep within to change our physiology. We're working against millions of years of evolution that we have certain patterns. The word kindness comes from kin. That they were part of our kin. So we were kind to our kin. When there was some research I heard about recently, which is where I think it was people were sticking a needle in a hand, and underneath it would have a label, and the person was all sort of wired up so as they could read what would happen in the brain, magnetic imaging. And it would have religious thing. It would say Muslim, somebody stabbing a hand with a sharp needle. Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, atheist. And when people saw somebody who had the same label as them, the areas of the brain that felt compassion, connection, were stronger. Even with the atheists. And those areas in the brain, when the label was different, didn't light up. Yeah. Now we're working against that. It's not that they're bad people, or we're bad people. It's that labeling. Yeah. So primarily, firstly, I'm a human being. We are human beings. Before were any of those labels of Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, young, old, male, female. So being the ability to meet ourselves, that vulnerability, the tenderness with which we can meet ourselves, will start to come out into the world. Those of you know the story of the Buddha sitting beneath the Bodhi tree and the forces of Mara. The legend is the forces of Mara, hatred, anger, lust, doubt, confusion. He's beset by them. They're attacking him. And I love some of the stories, like in some of the Lalita Vistra, I think it is, where it kind of goes on for pages and pages, and they hurled camels at him, The image just makes you laugh. I don't know whether the guys were just kind of like, yeah, camels, let's put camels on. Yeah. The Buddha sat there. He didn't laugh. It just kind of transformed into flowers. But that idea of that whatever emerges, he's able to meet with a tenderness. It's not that somebody external attacked the Buddha. I don't think that's what happened. I think it's describing the inner world of anger, doubt, lust, insecurity, and being able to kind of meet it with tenderness. Now, human beings, they're born, the gestation period is 9 months, and they come out, and the brain is hardly formed. Sorry, there's a lot of Davers in the room, and they're just playing around, ringing the bell. And okay, stop it. So where was I? Anybody tell me where I was? Or were you miles away as well? Babies. So not formed, thank you. It would have taken me ages to find my way back to that. So the early conditioning of the parent has a huge impact, or the parents, caregivers, has a huge impact on how the brain continues to form. The creation of integration across the two hemispheres of the brain. The ability to regulate emotion. The ability to develop a positive sense of self. The ability to deal with adversity, frustration, conflict. So all those qualities, those really important qualities, are developed in the early years by that sense of intimacy, love and care of the parent to the child. Yeah. The aliveness of the parent or the caregivers to the inner world of the child creates that really healthy, integrated brain structure, the ability to deal with emotion, frustration, upset. Yeah. To feel a sense of belonging, to feel a natural sense of one's self-worth. to feel naturally in love with life. Yeah. That's broken down. That's broken down in our culture and our society. You know, we've become quite atomized. We no longer feel we're part of a village. We no longer feel even we're part of a family. Sometimes we try and get as far away from our families as possible, just to try and integrate ourselves. Because family, as you probably all know, trigger some of those old patterns of pain and upset. Emotions that we weren't able to deal with at the time. And we repress them. We split off from ourselves. We become less alive. I often find myself thinking, if the Buddha was alive today, what would he be teaching? How would he be teaching? Would he be on social media? Yeah. I imagine the Buddha would have quite a good sense of humour, even in the Pali Canon, which is as, if you read it, can sometimes feel like, God, it's a bit dry, but actually I've read a lot of the Pali Canon quite a number of times, and you do sort of, the Buddha's humour even comes through the dryness of the oral tradition. His mischief. Yeah. It's not that I've modelled himself on it, I think that comes quite naturally to me. So what would the Buddha be teaching if he was alive today? I think he would be trying to address that sense of isolation. He would still be teaching, the empty nature of self. That all things are process. I think he would still be teaching the 5 precepts. And I think he'd still be teaching him in the way that is really, I love the way the 5 precepts, is phrased by the Buddha. I undertake the training principle to abstain from harming living beings. It's not thou shalt not. You shouldn't. I undertake this training principle, a principle of training my mind. I undertake the training principle to abstain from taking the not given. So broad. Yeah? It's not about stealing. If we look at the way the current economic system is set up, it makes sense to take stuff if you're starving. Yeah? So I undertake to abstain from taking the not given. I undertake to abstain from sexual misconduct. I undertake to abstain from false speech. Again, it's a training principle. I undertake the training principle to abstain from false speech. Most of the false speech that goes on in my life is inside. How I try and show a certain side of myself to the world and not others. How I try and do that within myself. And the embarrassment of seeing that sometimes. And I had to undertake the training principle to abstain from intoxicants that cloud the mind, such as reading the Guardian sports page obsessively, checking Facebook the 4th time in the day. Has anybody messaged me to say they love me? And then not only are the precepts phrased in the training. I undertake the training principle. They're phrased in the positive way, with deeds of loving kindness. I purify my body. With open-handed generosity, I purify my body. With stillness, simplicity, and contentment, I purify my body. With truthful communication, I purify my speech. And with mindfulness clear and radiant, I purify my mind. It's interesting, I say these often, but just saying them with you guys as witness in some ways, they feel more beautiful. So I think the Buddha would be teaching this. But again, it wouldn't be thou shan't. And I love the concept in Buddhism of kusala and akusala, skillful and unskillful. He doesn't talk about right and wrong in terms of the precepts, he talks about skillful and unskillful. Because we all want to grow towards the light. We all want to grow towards the light of our hearts being open and achieving our full potential. We all want to do that. And some of the things we do don't lead to that, and they're unskillful. And the things that do lead to that are skillful. You can't prescribe, because you have to know where you are in order to move beyond. You need to know what is it will lead me towards a deeper connection with myself, rather than a pretense of connection with myself. And sometimes we have to acknowledge the darker sides of our psyche, come into relationship with them, meet them at the door, laughing, invite them in, because each is being sent as a gift from beyond, as Rumi would say. So when we're children, we're alive to our inner world. We're developing this inner world. We're developing the capacity to regulate our emotions. And but then we start becoming conscious of parts of ourselves that are not necessarily accepted. And most of us, our parental conditioning would be such that it would be, don't do that, that's wrong, that's bad. Or even just a look would sort of think, oh no, we've done something wrong, we're not going to be loved here. So we kind of close off that part of ourselves in order to be accepted, in order to survive, in order to feel love. Those parts become separated off. The less healthy the conditions within which we grow, the larger will be those parts that are cut off. The wounded parts. The vulnerable parts. And so we present to the world, for want of a better phrase, a survival personality. This is me, aren't I lovely? Yeah. And it's a thin wedge of our psyche. And we use that so as a shield, so as people don't see the wounded part. Yeah. That survival self can take all sorts of different shapes, patterns. My own was, I'm strong, I'm capable, I can do it all. Yeah. Some it might be, I'm a good boy. I don't say anything, I'm always quiet and sensitive. I didn't have that one. Or I'm a good girl. You know, I'm a sweet girl. Or I'm a bookish girl, or whatever. That survival personality, that way of defining yourself that you allow people to see. Yeah. So when we take that survival personality around like a mask, and often the world seems too harsh to be able to let that mask down. And that mask gets in the way of intimacy. Gets in the way of really allowing people to see who we really are, allowing us to be authentic and real, to meet each other with integrity. So, and then occasionally we'll fall in love with someone. Part of ourselves projected out, our wounded part put onto someone else so they can fix us. They will love us. Yeah. So, and after a while, when you're intimate like that, and you expect them to carry your wound, you can't keep up the survival self with them so much, and so you fall into patterns of power and dispute. Yeah. Struggle. You're not the way I thought you were. Yeah. You're not you're not like what you were, you know. And why don't you? And so there's this problem of power, this real struggle of power. Because we expect them to sort us out. But basically, we're still looking for the right person. And so we end that relationship and we go off and try and find it somewhere else. Or in somehow else. Yeah. Get the right job. New house, new car, new place to live. And so, or in all the acquisitions. And the more we acquire, the poorer we become. The more we acquire, the poorer we become. If our sense of self-worth is dependent upon a structure, a role, possessions, we are indeed impoverished. So we live in poor times, we live in dark times. You know, actually the times are darker than 1939, I think. In 1939 we weren't facing such climate catastrophe so intimately. The rise of the right wing, the rise of xenophobia. So what would the Buddha say? I think he would want us to realize that it's the most important change is you. That's not to say you don't engage in changing the world. That is, the Buddha was fearsome on that. Yeah? You know, the first 60-odd disciples that he ordained and taught, he said within a short period of time, hey guys, stop hanging about, get out there, help the world, be of benefit to others. Go forth, wander for the benefit of the many. So it's out of compassion. So that deep engagement with the self, with himself, with the inner world, with tenderness, the training of the mind, and the ability to focus the mind and to heal oneself rather than expecting the healing to come from someone else. It's not easy. It is not easy. But there's things we can do that can support us. The need for beauty in one's life. It's easy at Buddhafield. It's easy at Buddhafield, or I find it so. Walking along the top field, I kind of struggle between camping down here by the Dharma Parlour area where I really have lots of people, friends come because down here, and camping up in the Longfield where you get these beautiful sunsets and skies at night. And you walk up the fairy track, and the love and care that's gone into making that. I was coming down the track the other day, and there was a little girl, probably 4 or 5, and she was looking into this it was a tiny bird box. And I said, "Is there anything in it?" She said, "Yes, there's a fairy. It's in the bottom." and there was as well. Unfortunately, I couldn't see it, but I could sense it. So I always walk up the fairy track because it's so beautiful. And then you turn. You can either go left to the kids area, or right, and you got Small World Cafe. You got the recycling. The recycling. I don't know about you, but I might choke up now. The work that's gone into that, the thought that's gone into that. I know the guy Geronimo, who's taken on the recycling. The commitment and dedication to try and really, for us as a community, to exemplify our principles. It's beautiful. Those big blue bins with what is to be recycled. There's a beauty in it. Yeah. Then you walk down and there's that shop selling instruments. Have you seen that shop? Wow, the beauty. Yeah. Then you got the Tri-Band place, and then you go a bit further down. You got Pachamamas, beautiful teepees, good chai, and outside, what did he say? Give what you like. That would make me cry as well. Yeah. Can you imagine a world where it wasn't an exchange world, what are you worth, what am I worth, but actually we each shared our gifts? Yeah. One of my favourite teachings of the Buddha is, if beings knew, as I know the value of sharing gifts, they would never turn down an opportunity to give, even if it was their last morsel of food, their last mouthful. They would not eat it, for they would long to share it. But beings do not know, as I know, the value of sharing gifts, and so they allow stinginess to obsess the heart and stay there. Yeah? So I often there's some of the there's many of the Buddhist teachings I really try and reflect on and try and live by, and that's one. So if ever I've got a bar of chocolate, I will want to share it. In fact, I don't like eating chocolate on my own because I don't think it's that good for me, even though I like it. So actually sharing it helps. Yeah. But it doesn't need to be that. But I want to share. I want to share what I have, even if it's the last bit. I do want to share it. And so often I'll say to people, "Oh, do you want to share this?" And they say, "But it's the last one." I'll say, "Share it." And so actually, in them sharing it, they allow me to give, and that's a beautiful thing. Now I know that. I know I'm very good. I just kind of like, yeah, I will. Even if I sort of think, "But Jayaraja, it's the last date, and I've bought, they're not mine." I will share it, and I know I actually will feel better for doing that. However, if somebody says to me, "Oh, Jayaraja," I'll say, "Oh, is that?" They'll say, "Oh, no, have it." And I'll go, "Oh, no. Yeah. So it's kind of, I need to train my mind to allow people to give to me. Yeah. To sort of be in touch with my self-worth a bit more. Yeah. So allowing people to give to me. And we've been so given to. So beauty, we're talking about beauty, but now I'm talking about gratitude and giving. So giving arises out of gratitude. Knowing how much we've been given to. So, the sound system here. Somebody had the thought and creativity to put it all together. Yeah? And this palette is just perfect. Yeah, those of you who are late, I kept falling off the palette, sliding down. So, there's just the field. If you go, when you leave the tent, just go round, noticing the beautiful people, but all the beautiful care that's gone into what's around here. Yeah? So, there are dark times. As I say that, the poem, Auden's poem, written in September 1939, things deteriorated for some time, 6 years. And there was a great deal of suffering. So there's two kinds of suffering. In fact, there's three kinds of suffering, according to the Buddha. I didn't think I'd be doing lists today, but here we go. So there's the suffering of physical pain. You're too hot, you're too cold, you bang your head. I banged my head I had a massage this morning, and I banged my head twice on the way into the massage tent. Yeah. I did sort of think I better do it a third time so as to get it over with. But very good massage. Why did I say that? I'm just advertising now, I think. I felt grateful, that's it. Yeah, I felt grateful to this really fantastic massage I had. So, sorry, three kinds of suffering, thank you. Yeah. There's Davis in the audience as well, in front as well as behind. So, three kinds of suffering. First, too hot, too cold, physical pain. Yeah. Second kind is emotional pain. Being with that which you don't like, being without that which you love. The fear of losing that which you love. The fear of being with that which you don't like. Yeah? Your lover will leave you. You fear that. You fear losing your job, your house, your car. Yeah? Actually, one of the things, one of my favourite possessions is my bike. And I have this thing whereby I know it's going to get stolen. I know it will be stolen. So whenever I come back and find it there, I go, oh great, it's still there, still my bike. Yeah. But it's the same with my body. It's going to go. My health will go. Yeah, unless I suddenly get run over and don't manage to go through the old age bit. Though some of you in the audience might think I've already arrived at the old age bit. That's one of the things I'm learning about working at Buddhafield. That some people think I'm old. So yeah. The third kind of suffering is the existential suffering. The fact that if you have it all, there's still something missing. And the existential suffering is really difficult to deal with. How we tend to deal with it in the West is we think we gang up on ourselves. Why am I so selfish? I've got everything and there's other people in the world struggling. And so the internal battle is against oneself. Rather than sort of sitting as the Buddha sat, and these forces, internal forces that are shaming us or accusing us or undermining us, rather than seeing them and going, oh, okay, and meeting them with tenderness, we join in with them. Or we hide from them ourselves. So we present the survival personality to ourselves. So that ability to really be authentic with ourselves needs to be, it's a practice, cultivated, worked on. And in fact, definitely one thing that does need to be cultivated is the existential angst. The lover is not going to sort your problems out. The house that overlooks the sea cliff with the beautiful garden and the veg growing in nice rows, with the forest, and the berries and the figs, it's not going to solve your problems. You're going to get old. Those people you love are going to get old. and they're going to die, and they're going to suffer. So that cultivate existential questioning. Yeah? Because the world is on fire. And you, each person in this room, has got tremendous potential to be a force for good. Knowing that when we think of somebody as not part of our family, we will cut off those parts of our brain that engender compassion. So you have to train it. So the training is of different levels and intensities. The metta bhavana, cultivating love towards ourselves, that can be quite difficult for many people. But work at it. Yeah? Meet those fearful, those parts that tell you you're not good enough. Meet them. They need healing. They're not going to be healed by a lover. They're not going to be healed by lots of drugs and alcohol. They're not going to be healed by a job or a house or a new bike. They're going to be healed by you parenting them with tenderness. And sometimes when I sit and those parts are really vivid for me, I use my imagination, which I've been cultivating for years, that imagination of compassion. So I visualise a figure called Green Tara. She's up there, look at that, that's fantastic, isn't it? Beautiful. So somebody painted that for Buddhafield. So I imagine this figure of Green Tara, a symbol of compassion. And I imagine her holding me from behind. And as I sit, feeling the sensations, the raw sensations of pain, sadness and despair, I imagine Tara holding me and rocking me and saying, "It's all right, Jayaraja, you're all right." Yeah. And over the years, that ability to feel that sense of loved by the universe or by Tara has increased. One of the things I talked earlier about the Buddha, what would he be saying now? I think he would be trying to undermine our sense of materialism. The literal mindedness that thinks we are separate. The literal mindedness thinks that if it can't be measured, it doesn't exist. Stop it. The literal mindedness. Yeah? He would be trying to really challenging that materialist view of the world. The other day, we had a closing ritual for the site crew. So some of us have been on the site setting it up for 2 weeks. And we started a ritual of calling on the gods and the spirits to bless us and telling them that we came here with good intentions to create an environment of love and peace and harmony, and we wanted their support, and they've been fantastic, I have to say. Yeah. And we did that to all the directions in the field. We walked to different areas. And so then we had a closing ritual of the setup team, and a bigger team. And it was lovely to do. I was leading the ritual. And the last part of the ritual was the Torah Mantra. As we walked around and looked at each person, and as we were looking at each person, my co-leader was saying, "These are the people that dug the trenches. These are the people that put up the toilets. These are the people that emptied the toilets. These are the people that put up the tents. These are the people that cook the food." You know, so she was saying that. And then we went into the Torah Mantra. And how many people here have ever seen a rainbow cloud? Hands up. Put them up high so people can see. All right, not many. They're rare. What appears in the sky as we're doing the closing ritual? A rainbow-coloured cloud. Rainbow-coloured cloud, Torah Mantra. Torah emerges out of a rainbow-coloured cloud. Yeah. But anyway, that we can't measure that. Can't prove it. It's not true. It's not real. And the setup, we had talks in the one each night. One person was saying she was going through this struggle of being dropped by a lover, and she was in France in this campsite, and there was these two women. This woman's is gay, and she was there, and there was these other two women, and they were very, very friendly, but they weren't gay, but they were just very friendly, and they kind of would invite her over for to have dinner with them in the campsite, and she just thought there's something special about these people, something special. Anyway, they went off. She went off. She comes back to England, gets a job. She's checking water. Her job is checking water to see. So she would check it at the source, and then she would go to a street, and she would knock on two random houses and take a water sample to see it is. So, first week of work, knocks on a door. Happens to be Sripada, the woman from France. Yeah. So, and she was sort of wishing that she could meet these women because they had something special. Then she knocks on the door, and the woman says, Sripada says, "Oh yeah, you're still struggling with that. How about you go on retreat?" And so that woman, "15 years on, is the woman who designs the layout of the Buddhafield Festival." Yeah. The world is full of magic. Yeah. I think it was not Albert Tatlock, but Albert Einstein, who said, "Perhaps the greatest wisdom is the openness to the mysterious." Yeah. So, cultivate a sense that the world is not going to work. Yeah. So as that gives you faith in what you can develop inside, the true riches that are inside you, the true potential within you. Yeah. And you'll have to work. You'll have to sit on the cushion. You'll have to work on the physiology of coming back to your heart and your breathing. You'll have to do it every day. You have to work on the precepts. You'll have to develop community. You have to work on developing friendships of depth. You have to work on generosity, which helps develop friendship. You have to play football with them. There's a story about the Dalai Lama met this old friend of his who had been in prison for 18 years in Tibet. And he'd been tortured and ridiculed, beaten, and near starved. If you read some of the accounts of the conditions in the prisons, the brutality is, unbelievably, that humans could do that to other humans. And the Dalai Lama said to this old monk friend of his, he said, "Did you ever suffer fear when you were in the prison?" And he said, "Yes." The Dalai Lama, with slightly teasing, said to him, "But with all your practice, you experienced fear. What were you frightened of?" He said, "I was frightened I would lose compassion for the people who were torturing me." Yeah. We have great potential. We need to work. We need to train our minds. I need to train my mind. Yeah. If somebody irritates me or frustrates me, it's telling me something about me. It's telling me where I need to work. Yeah. We must love one another or die. Defenceless under the night, our world in stupor lies, yet dotted everywhere, ironic points of light flash out wherever the just exchange their messages. May I, like them, composed of eros and of dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, realize the impermanent nature of all things, and with mindfulness strive.